welcome to Fierce Eclectic Podcast, episode 6. Here I am with my friend.
Phzoul. There, I was on time this time.
Well, we're used to it now. Adrian's little trick.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yes. What are we
So
talking
have you
about
done?
tonight?
Yeah. Well, I have a list of things.
Okay.
We won't get through all of them. We'll pick a few that I've asterisked, and if we need others, there's always the contentious issue I really want to talk about when there's just the two of us before we talk about it with other people.
Sure.
And I guess instead of I was going to ask, what you've been doing the last week, but I think we'll start this off with pregens, like the pregens
Okay.
for one
Why?
shots
Why?
or making your
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah. 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 So I guess you're wondering. I think we talked about last time how I don't really like Pregens, and I guess
Hmm.
you're looking for an explanation as to why.
Sure.
Well, listen. For me, role playing is a bit of an art, right? Like I take it fairly seriously. And what I want to do as a GM, I want to have the most immersive story or experience that I can. And so I guess I look at it that if none of what you're sitting down to play is yours, the story's not yours, the character's not yours, then that's a barrier to immersion. Um, and so I want this to be your story. I want you to come out of it feeling like you helped create it, that it was your journey. Um, and And I find that pregens are, yeah, they're a barrier to it. And again, you could get, not all the time, you could get an amazing pregen, but you could also get a pregen that you just don't connect with. And I think Mad Bard posted last week, and he made a good point. He said pregens make you stretch. So my question would be, is that really why someone plays, or do they play to have fun? I mean, some people good. I think everybody's different. But for me, I guess I want it to be immersive, and I want it to be the player's story. So that's why I prefer that they cast their character. Pre-gen stats is okay. If you don't have time to come up with stats, that's fine. But I want the concept to be yours. So that's why I'm kind of anti pre-gen.
And playing with you has changed my mind only in that I feel sometimes I enjoy doing it your way. And when I'm doing your game and doing it your way, I find that enjoyable. Where I would have said before gaming with you that if there wasn't a pre-gen, I probably wouldn't sign up for the game. And
I think pre-gens. So can you explain? So what was the appeal of pre-gens? Just that you don't have to think about it. You can just show up and play. Like you don't need a prep, or what is the appeal of the pre-gen?
I think that's some of the appeal. I know that I've heard other people talk about it. My opinion is not this, but one of the things that I've run into with some gamers is they hate making characters. The building of the character is their least favorite part of a role playing game, and having to do that is like pulling their hair. They
But
don't find that
but it's
part
probably
enjoyable.
so. Is it the? Do you think it's the coming up with the concept for the character, or it's the building the mechanic side?
Oh, it's the mechanic side. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I think, and I'm speaking for other people. That's not my reason. My reason
no,
is
no,
is
no.
different.
Yeah, but
But I've
that's
heard
why I
that.
guess that's why I have a philosophy that you should be able to make a character in under 5 minutes, mechanics wise, right? I mean, that's why OSRPG. I have various versions of OSRPG in complexity, but even the most complicated one, I can make a character in less than 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
I have a concept and I can just go. Um,
But-
so I agree with you. If I had to sit down and spend like an hour trying to come up with stats for a character, that would be arduous, right? That might not be as fun. And in a convention setting, or in a lot of cases, it's not a realistic expectation. Right?
So I'll say what Adrian's posted there, that he played in a game recently, rolled up characters at the start of the session, 4 players, and 45 minutes later, and that was a Shadow Dark. And I've run into that at conventions where I thought I'm going to be sitting down and I'm going to play 4 hours of a game to find out that the GM is saying, "Hey, yeah, we're going to create characters," and you spend the first hour, and there's always one, sometimes two, at a table that takes forever to make every decision and needs to ask a multitude of questions, and that
Yeah.
everyone else is just sitting there. So there's no engagement during the character creation process.
Yeah.
And for me,
Yeah.
one of the worst was Empire of the Petal Throne. I got to play Empire of the Petal Throne for the very first time. This would have been 2015, and the whole thing was tarnished by this horrible character creation process we went through that it took 2 hours. It took half the
Wow.
playtime. And I was not interested in playing by the time we started playing, And I'm not comparing that to, your side. Those are some negative experiences
No,
I've
for
had,
sure. For
but
sure.
that's also
Yeah.
not the reason why. That's part of the reason. That is a backbone of, I think, of the reason why, for the most part, I require pre-gens. But for me, the big thing as a player that I want is something I wouldn't think of. I want to play something that I would never
Mm.
have, because if I put it together, I'm going to fall back on things I've always done, kind of fall back on kind of that
Yep.
usual, especially if it was a fantasy game, right? The idea that, well, I tend to play like I know people, they only play thieves, or they only play this
Yeah.
kind of character, and they tend to fall back. If I'm given something that I had nothing to do with creating, I have something to sink my teeth into and explore role
Yep.
playing and get outside my boundaries, which
Yeah, that
is
makes
what
sense.
I'm
So you
trying to
want to
do.
be, you want what Mad Bard is saying. You want to be, you want to be forced to stretch and react. And it's
Exactly.
funny. I wrote this top 10 reasons why one shots are awesome. And one of the so you nailed one of the reasons. So it's interesting because it kind of works against me. But one of the reasons why I feel one shots are awesome is because it gives you the opportunity to play something that you otherwise wouldn't in a campaign. Because in a campaign, I don't want, you're right, I don't want to take risks. I want to fall back on a character I know I'll like because I'm going to be playing that character for a very long time. But in a one shot, I can take that risk and see if I like it
Right.
or not.
And
Yeah.
that is a big thing, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
ability to take, and I take huge risks in your game specifically, because most of the time it might turn out okay, but it allows you to try things. Like
Yeah.
I don't mind if I
I
die early in a one shot, but it
yeah.
gives you that opportunity to try stuff that you wouldn't normally try.
So I guess I really like that. I like that that philosophy. I just don't see why that has, and I can understand. I guess you're saying if I might not think of that type of character, and that could definitely be the case. But so for me, I would encourage players who sit down at one of my one shots to take that risk, but again, create the concept on their own. Out of
Hmm.
curiosity, so I always ask people to cast their characters, and the reason why I do that, there's two reasons, I guess. One is that I've always viewed games through the lens of a director or through movies, but the other is I thought it was a shortcut to character creation. That obviously, if I'm picking Danny DeVito or George Clooney, it immediately fast tracks me into, okay, what type of character is this going to be? Like Arnold Schwartz, if I pick Arnold Schwarzenegger as my casting, all right, then all of a sudden I know a lot of things about what that character is likely going to be like already. I don't like to say it's stereotyping, but I guess I find that um, it's just a good way to get into into the mood of the character.
Do you find when you're doing the casting that you run across people who make choices about the character that kind of go against the casting, or at least are surprising to you, or it doesn't make sense?
Not typically. I mean, I think it depends on the actor. So some actors are some actors are much more versatile than others, right? They might be in different roles, so you could see them in different things. But it has backfired in the way that you sometimes have to limit or guide the casting. I might have told you this example before, but I have an adventure called Clowns of Funland, and it's
Hmm.
supposed to be about a family investigating an abandoned amusement park to look for another family member who's been missing for 11 years. And one of the characters one of the I guess, positions that you can play the adventure is the private investigator who is accompanying the family. One of the I was at a convention. One of the players chose Samuel L. Jackson as the casting. Sure, awesome, great actor. But this is supposed to be a horror game, right? It's the characters are supposed to be on the run. And the moment the clowns made their appearance, lo and behold, out of this player's mouth was, "I ain't scared of no motherfucking clowns." And he and he drew his pistols and started laying down fire, right? So the that worked. The casting worked, and that's exactly what you would expect from Samuel L. Jackson. But it did kind of throw the adventure in a different direction than intended. Yeah.
That's that. And of course, that's someone who, when you think about Samuel L. Jackson, it's his later stuff, and the earlier stuff, like the Negotiator or the Kiss of Death, where he plays a very
Yeah.
serious role. The cop who
Yeah,
gets
yeah,
shot in the eye
yeah,
and that stuff like
yeah,
that, and he's
yeah.
can be quite mean. He can do that stuff. I think he just chose to
Oh,
move
he
away from
can.
drama. Eh?
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so the casting is something I've taken. While I haven't always like incorporated it, I do enjoy the casting aspect because that part's become fun, trying to find somebody new or different to cast. But now I have to play Danny DeVito as like a guy who's like amazing with guns and
I
martial
have to say,
arts.
I love Danny DeVito. So I've been watching Sunny in Philadelphia, and he's just the best part of it. But yeah, he's awesome at everything he does. Yeah, and I will tell you, I am stunned a lot of the times by the casting. Most people don't go for the A-listers, right? They don't go like it's actually kind of unusual. Most of the time, I'm a bit surprised by it. Age, he played in Traveler the other night, and he picked Sonny Landham from Predator, who played Billy Chavez, and I was like,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome, right? But he could have
yeah.
picked Carl Weathers, could have picked Arnold Schwarzenegger, but no, went for Sonny Landham, and that was an awesome choice.
There's not a bad choice once that group of actors, in
No,
my
that's
opinion.
right.
Um,
Absolutely, absolutely.
oh yeah, I haven't seen the event report of that yet.
Oh yes, I need to get that done. Yeah, thanks for reminding me.
I'll give an example of something that works against my idea of the pre-gens and works for what you're saying. I was in at TravelerCon USA, 2019, and I had a blast. This was a great convention, and the GM of this game was good, and the game was good. But the way way he had orchestrated the pre-gens was that kind of very classic idea where it's not even, where some characters are weaker than others, and I got stuck with a character who was weaker than everybody else in everything. So there was somebody who was better than me at every single thing that I could do. And because it was military based and there was an order of a chain of command, and we've talked about chain of command, you and I, before, and how much I dislike having chain of command in a one shot. And it's because of this session, because I ended up at the bottom, and that character felt mostly useless because I was never called upon by the people in charge to do anything. I did end up having fun and getting into combat and fighting a Kamex or whatever, however you pronounce them, the little alien creatures, and it ended up being fun in the end. But I think they kind of put me in a fun spot because they realized like halfway through that, Dwight's not having a good time, so let's have him go do something. But the actual stats didn't matter in the play of the game. It was purely a chain of
Yeah,
command issue, more so than the
yeah,
actual character.
yeah.
And that is a reason why when I run Traveler, there's two things I do, and one is I don't do chain of command. But if the players decide to, that's up to them.
Yeah.
And I always have more pre-gens than are available players, so that there's a
Oh,
bit
okay.
more choice. So you don't get stuck with a character you don't
Yeah,
like.
yeah.
Hmm.
No, that makes complete sense. Yeah. So you've done a few things. So again, along this philosophy of immersion, I played in a couple games with you where you've done a few things that I thought were great at immersion. One was the voice modulator thing for a robot in one of your adventures. Is there anything else that you have found to be, I guess, effective at creating immersion for players?
I think the voices makes a big difference. It's not something I do enough.
Yeah.
The voice modulator was something I tried for a while. I'm trying to remember if that was that a Mothership Adventure you were on, or was that a
Yeah, I
different
think it
one?
was. Yeah. Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was a Mothership
Yeah.
Adventure. Yeah. Yeah.
So
That was
and
good.
there,
You use music. I find music, I underutilize music. I don't use it. And I think my games are worse for it because it can definitely be powerful, but uh, and I love to know if there's any GMs that are successfully like, so there's just having background music, but is there GMs that actually have different music queued up for different scenes? Like all of a sudden we get into a fight and the battle music starts or something like that. I thought that would be cool, but it's another thing to manage in the game. And I find I'm already managing a lot. So it
mhm.
seems like a lot of effort to add that in,
I
but
think it is if you don't have it some kind of system set up to make it easier
yeah,
for you.
yeah.
Age
Yeah.
asked, what about that monster sound effect in your last game?
Oh yeah, so I do use those uh, very selectively. So it's not like you're being inundated with sounds. It was actually a sound effect from our back rooms game. Um,
Mm,
so things like so for example, I have a Jurassic Park game where the sound effects that I have is the thud, the kind of the thud of the T-Rex kind of approaching. Um, uh, Star Wars game, I have Vader's breathing. So
mm,
I do like to incorporate sound effects, but it's selective and they tend to be very kind of like as soon as you hear it, you're like, oh, uh,
yeah.
impactful type thing. Yeah.
I did go through a short phase where I was uploading things to the soundboard on Discord so I could just click them. Of course, the problem with the soundboard being that other people could then, hey, look, there's a soundboard he's using, and then they start clicking on things, and then it kind of takes away from
Yeah.
everything you were trying to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea that in person, the idea because I'm using a microphone that cuts out background noise, it's impossible for me to like clap my hands or make any kind of
Oh
noise. And
yeah.
even if
Yeah.
I stop doing voices because this microphone, if I do high pitch or if I yell or it just cuts out, so I they don't
Oh,
hear
okay.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
voice. So that the modulator made a difference, but it stopped working on me and I gave up on it. But it was a
Oh,
lot of
okay.
fun. The thing I
Yeah.
disliked with the modulator I was using, which was voice mod, was that I couldn't hear the modulation, so I just had to go on.
Oh,
I don't know.
interesting. Oh,
And if you
interesting.
have to
Okay.
ask mid-session, "Hey, is the voice modulator working?" Again,
Yeah.
you ruin immersion.
Yeah.
Um, I think
Yeah.
I used
Oh.
it for maybe 4 sessions before I realized it hadn't been working for 4 sessions. Like it had worked for like a dozen sessions
That's
up
funny.
till that, but then all of a sudden it wasn't working, and I was like, "Oh, geez." And I felt so stupid, because here I am picking all these voices, and none of them are actually going through.
That's
But
funny.
um, do you ever fudge the dice rolls?
Oh, good question. Um, uh, so interesting. Occasionally, um, and always in the player's favor.
Mm,
Uh, so if well, no, I should say I've fudged rolls as a player online, and let me explain. Against me, against
you're
me.
fired.
No, I've rolled. And here's the reason: I was in a convention game and I was using Roll 20. Was I using Roll 20? No, I wasn't using Roll 20. I was using we're all it wasn't we weren't rolling in front of people. We were just rolling on our own die rollers or real dice. And I had rolled like three natural 20s in a row. And when I rolled the third one, I went, they're not going to believe me. Like they're not.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I just said it's a 15. Uh, so yeah, but it's rare, and I actually started to roll. I like nowadays. I like rolling in front of the screen. I don't like rolling in secret as a GM because it I feel again. Um, I like lean in moments. So you're running a game and half the people are leaning back, not paying attention. But like things like the skull die, things like a natural 20, a one, like I like things that cause players to lean in. And I noticed that in person, anyway, when I put my hand, I don't do all rolls, but when I put that hand over the screen with the die and I'm going to roll on the table, everybody is paying attention, right? Oh,
Mhm.
okay, the GM's rolling in front of us. This matters. And by rolling in front of the screen, you can't change it, right? That's it. Whatever it is. That's the roll. So yeah. So what about you?
I don't anymore. But I mean, it's pretty rare. I would say on very rare occasions, and like you said, always in the player's favor. If I'm rolling too hot as a
That's
GM, I
right. That's
will.
it. Or I know I've just killed someone. I might be like, okay, you're instead of doing 20 hit points, I'll do 10, right, or something
Yeah,
like
I
that.
have
Yeah.
modified damage. Even in my weekly campaign, I have reduced damage. I try not to track hit points so that I don't purpose. So when I was younger in like the 90s, even in the early 2000s, I would track all the player hit points in my games so that
Okay.
I could kind of keep people from dying. And
Yeah.
if and I rolled behind a screen, and I remember one time we were playing Weird Wars, and we were in a campaign, and I was rolling behind it, but one person could see. They were kind of, because of the way the table was
Yeah.
shaped, and they were peeking, and I was rolling 20 after 20 after 20 on it for a D20 game, and I was miss, and that person noticed, and someone else said I was like later on in the game, someone else said, oh, you're faking those hits. You didn't really hit me. And the other person was like, oh, you don't want to see the things he's been rolling against you.
That's funny.
Because you,
Yeah.
as a GM, especially if you're using critical hits, you're going to roll way more
Yeah.
critical hits than a player
Yeah.
in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I
I
actually
I
I
think.
have special GM dice I was using at the time that specifically were the most random dice I could find that
Oh,
didn't
okay.
tend to roll one way or
Yeah.
the other.
Yeah.
But
I will tell you, like, so yeah, I do it a lot less these days. And the other thing that I got an appreciation for on this server, specifically on this server, in several games that I played, was randomness. When I joined Furiously Eclectic People, I did not believe in random. No random encounters, no random events, no random weather. Everything is predetermined by this by me in the story. And I think and I got a real appreciation for randomness because I guess I realized that before I joined, maybe I was trying, before I experienced playing with you guys, maybe I was trying to direct the narrative too much in a specific direction. And randomness kind of makes it more interesting for me, right? I don't
mhm,
really want to know the ending, right? I don't really want to
yeah.
know, oh, this went exactly as I had hoped. So I have a new appreciation for it. And I'm trying to, I guess, integrate randomness into my games and into my thinking.
I, I I think, and I'm not sure when it was for me. I think we always used random encounters. Maybe not always. I think when I was really young, when I was like maybe preteen, I wouldn't have thought of using them, but I would always have these
I don't,
ideas in my head that I wanted to use. But
yeah.
go ahead.
Well, just saying, I don't. So random encounters is the interesting one. So I do like randomness. I don't. So random encounters. Here's where I struggle with it. I've really adopted this movie philosophy that everything in the game should be moving the game forward, right? So momentum. I'm a big momentum person. So I don't want anything in the game that's just you could remove it and it wouldn't make a difference. And that's how I think about random. I don't want a random encounter to just be just a speed bump, right? I mean, I want it. So even a random encounter should have. I don't know. I guess I'm just I'm a bit torn. I like randomness now, but there's a part of me that still goes, I don't want things that slow the momentum of the game. But again, it's because I'm in one shots, right? Maybe in a campaign. The campaign is
It's
different. You have that
it is
time.
different in a campaign, I think, but
Yeah.
I mean, again, a campaign style can be different from GM to GM, and I've done different styles throughout the years, but in this current one, the players never know what's a random encounter or isn't on my Tuesday night game. And
Yeah, and that's the way
so
it
they
should be.
don't know
Yeah.
whether it's important or not. And it ultimately often becomes important. Like if they've engaged with the encounter, it becomes canon. It becomes part of the campaign. And often
Yeah,
that
that's cool. Yeah.
like I've mentioned to you probably in the past, is the NPCs that have become the most important to the players are not ones I set out to become them. They were more randomly
Yeah.
placed that just happened to get picked up and liked. And the villains that they've generated have been generated by cause, and some of those have been random encounters that just then have
Yeah.
hung on or had ramifications. You killed this random creature, and well, that was actually serving this other person or was the leader of this other faction, and now there's a powered vacuum, and things like that can happen. So
Yeah.
I try to
Oh, I
incorporate randomness into the game, into the actual background, but I use the randomness as a way to generate fun I wasn't expecting, much less the players.
Yeah. No, I definitely I can appreciate that for sure. I can see how that like again, like your West Marches game and stuff like that, I have a new appreciation for kind of the world and the story evolving organically.
That was definitely an experiment, yeah, and then that was all
Yeah.
random pretty well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually ran a West Marches style game with my regular group after you did, but it wasn't fantasy. It was Marvel superheroes. They had a haven in Anchorage, Alaska, and you could swap out characters. Then each session had to be was a mission, and it was the setting was following the snap. So when Thanos snapped his finger, and half of the world's population vanished, the world was thrown. It's funny. Marvel just skipped over that whole what was it 4 years, 3 or 4 years. The
Something
world
like
was
that.
thrown into chaos. Right? Imagine what happens if half the population more in an instant are gone. It was power grabs, wars. I mean, that 4 years wasn't everybody sitting around getting along. It's just an interesting time period. So that's where I put it in the chaos following the snap. West Marches set in Anchorage, and then you're doing these finite missions. And I'd have a mission board at the beginning of each game session. They would get they had an intelligent they had a computer like Cerebrus, and it would feed intelligence as to what's happening around the world, and they would pick the mission they wanted to work on. Right? Oh, okay, somebody's trying to overthrow this country, and it was
Hmm.
really it was really fun, and I enjoyed it. Uh, and it was kind of organic. There was an overarching story in the background, but for the most part, it was just kind of a West Marches style.
Yeah. And I like the idea of a campaign, and that's what my West Marches was last year, was the idea that each session is its own. So they're really a series of one shots.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
for mine, it was definitely set up so I would have 2 or 3 days prior to the session to know where they were going, but there would be randomness all the way. So if they're traveling 4 hexes, well, there's going to be
yeah.
random encounters in each hex, and that can sidetrack things. But it, it it was an interesting experiment. I was wanting to do more of that. Um, but the randomness, I think you could, and I haven't tried this, but I think you could take a random tables and run a one shot and have a blast with the right people.
I think so. I've actually included in most of my recent publications in terms of not the adventures, but the rule books. I've actually included random adventure tables generators, right? So, uh, which is something I never would have done before, and it
I-
actually works. It's kind of cool, right? I mean, like if it's in a modern day setting, you roll the country, you roll the mission, you roll the antagonist, you roll the goons, you roll the twist, and then you got yourself a little adventure, right?
So those are, I would call those adventure seeds, right? That's you have a
Yeah,
bunch of
yeah,
seeds for adventure,
that's
but
right.
you said this
Yeah,
as a GM still got to pull all that together into something.
yeah,
Um, And and it clearly works for a lot of people because that's what Savage Worlds really, when they started putting out Savage Worlds, instead of making adventure modules for a lot of things, they were just making these kind of seed tables,
Yeah.
and people were using those. But that wasn't I wasn't fond of that. I would want like the setting and everything kind of set. And if I'm going to do random, I would want, like everything, like from whether the next corner turns
Oh,
into a room to,
yeah.
everything random. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that there's that one random dungeon generator that's on Etsy that the guy has a
Oh,
dungeon
interesting.
robber that he has a
Huh.
website too that I find that game fascinating to just sit and
Oh, that's
play
cool.
it.
I wasn't aware of it. Hmm. That's cool.
I'll have to throw a link up. I think there is a link on the server up for that. Should just catch up on Age mentioned something about the folks that they're folks in the case for open roles. Oh, he's talking about us, and their folks is the case for open roles. Yeah. And have the three of us ever been in a game together? Have been players, the three of
As
us.
players. Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think as players. Hmm. That'd be fun. Yeah,
Yeah,
it would. I think I think we've been in a game together, but always one of us was GMing.
that's probably the case. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've definitely all been GM'd by each other.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah. 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 Interesting. Um, the next game that I was thinking about running on the server, and I was going to use the Age of Adventure system in a modern game. Uh, and I was
oh
just
yeah.
saying that there might be a couple of tweaks, uh, like in a modern, like in a fantasy game. This might be, number of attacks per round is I feel, yeah, it's interesting because in some games, I feel one attack around is too slow. If I were to run Age of Adventure, I might try it with multiple attacks per round. Maybe using some type. Maybe you have to use an attack as a dodge mechanic. But the system that I've probably played the most, I mentioned it during the last game session. It's the one we played during the '90s and early 2000s, which was crap, cinematic role playing action, and pandemonium. Um, Most characters had 3 to 4 attacks around in that game. It was it's modern day, guns blazing, um, but you needed to use it was an action economy. You needed to use your attack to dodge. So you might have 3 or 4 attacks, but the guy you're up against has 3 or 4 attacks, so who wins initiative is critical, um, and then how you use those actions in terms of defense or attack um, became like a little strategy game within the system.
I think it is
Yeah,
fascinating to have multiple attacks. I like I was really entranced with the Troika initiative system where you take a bag and you put in 2 chits for each
ah,
hero, and then you might put in whatever number goes with the villains, and then there's an end of round token. So it becomes really chaotic. You shake it up and you pull out a token, and
ah,
a player might
sure.
go twice in a row, or they may not get to go that turn. It doesn't
Interesting.
translate well online, in my opinion, but
Okay.
in person, because you get to see the pulling of the bag.
Yeah.
Um, it generates this chaos of combat where you could have somebody. Not only that, they could have, say, 2 attacks at the end of a round and 2 attacks at the beginning of the next round, but that would be very rare.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
You
cool.
know,
I wasn't familiar with that. That's interesting.
so I like that. The Before I did Troika, the system I actually moved to for D&D, if I was running Holmes at the time, so I ran Holmes for quite a few years, and instead of rolling deck, well, we there was the Dex initiative we used at first, which I like that as well. But what I did is I wrote everybody's name down on a card, every character, and then I have one card that was like all NPC allies, and then I'd put in whatever cards for uh, enemies. I might have like them off the side, so I might put one in, or I might put three in, depending, and then I'd have an end around card too, and I would shuffle them up, and I was doing that prior to troika. And I liked that, so people would see me flipping the cards. You get to go. No, you get to go.
Okay.
That kind
Yeah,
of thing.
that's cool.
But again, that doesn't translate well online.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
um, Faraway land allows for you to have multiple attacks, but it depends because I use the first edition action point economy. I really enjoy having
Okay.
action points so that you kind of have to decide, am I going to
Hmm.
move and attack? I don't like necessarily this every round you can move and attack, but if you have an action point economy, then it takes you 2 action points to move, 3 to attack. So if you've got 5 action points, you can move and attack. But if you have 6 action points, you could still move and attack, or if you're already in melee, you get to attack twice.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I've never used an action point system before. I don't think. Hmm. Interesting. And
It
you don't.
sounds
You're not.
cumbersome,
Yeah, it does. I guess maybe that's why. Yeah.
but it's not. It really isn't once you get going. And I
Yeah.
find when new players are playing, they really just ask me anyway. Oh,
Oh, okay.
what can I
Yeah.
do? And because I know it, I can. You can do this.
And
Um,
you're not using a VTT for that. You're not using like a map with tokens. When you say move, you're not literally moving a token. That's more just theater of the
right.
mind.
It's theater
Yeah.
of the mind. Yeah. So if you're
Yeah.
I think we all, like, at least in the campaign, kind of have an agreement, like an unspoken agreement, that if you're not near the combat, it's going to take you 2 action points to get to a place or a
Okay.
combat or a spot. But if you're even within, in our minds, if you feel like you're within, 10 or 15 feet, you don't need any action points to just
Okay.
step into the combat.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're
That
pretty
makes sense.
loosey goosey with that. Like the 2 action points to be used for a movement would have to be like a generous movement, like across a room.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
But we're
Or to
rarely in
switch.
a dungeon, so.
Okay. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. I'd
But
be interested in trying an action point system.
where it comes in handy, interesting, is with somebody with a bow, because 1 action point to draw an arrow. So
Oh,
I've
okay.
always allowed them. You could draw 3 arrows and put them in your hand, no problem. And then if you have enough action points so what we have one guy who often, he'll draw at the end of his action, so he's already got an arrow drawn, and then he can
Ready.
fire
Okay.
that arrow, usually draw in maybe 2 more, and then fire again. So he'll get 2 attacks. It's just how many times it gets. So it's not the same every round. So you might get 1 attack this round, 2 attacks the next round,
Sure.
depending on what he does, right?
And do you make
And
in that game? Do you make characters with bows track ammo?
yes, I do.
Do okay. Yeah. I it's funny. I used to so in modern, obviously in modern day with guns and things like I used to have so many like this gun is this much ammo and all that stuff and track it. I kind of abandoned it in my more recent in the last couple of years, um, simply because there was no scenario in which someone was running out of ammo. Um,
Hmm.
but I brought up that's when you were tracking it like every shot was 1 round, right? Or
Hmm.
every shot was 5 rounds in an automatic weapon. It was just the combat didn't last long enough to run out of ammo. Um, so I kind of like these. What system was I can't remember the system, but there was one system. It's kind of like the idea of a skull die. Like, so instead of like when you watch a movie, no one's lining up a shot and firing a bullet, right? It's all just boom, 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 as fast as you can pull the trigger, right? There's bullets flying everywhere. I really like that idea, and then to
Hmm.
try and integrate that idea. So the idea is when you're taking one action, you're not actually just firing one bullet. You're just firing a bunch of them, and the question is, do any of them land? Um, and then you kind of integrate something like a skull die that if the skull comes up, you're out of ammo or something like that, right?
When you're including guns, that what you described is absolutely what I prefer as well. I like that idea that
Yeah.
when you're firing guns, that there's bullets everywhere, and it's just a
Yeah.
matter of what gets hit. Yeah, yeah. And I think the only time when I don't think when we did a World War II campaign I don't know if we actually tracked ammo or not, but I think everything was 3 bullet bursts, which maybe didn't make sense.
Yeah.
But I think when you're using those heavy Gatling guns, they heat up pretty quick, and I think that's something we measured, was whether or not they overheated.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, interesting. Yeah, yeah. The
But we
whole
weren't going for overly epic. We were going for gritty. Although we always allowed for someone to jump on a grenade, because grenades, I found when we were doing World War II, that grenades were the great balancer, right? If you were weaker than the opponent, your
yeah,
grenades would would balance that out, and then vice versa. If a grenade got thrown at your group by a weaker group, that still something that could take everybody out.
yeah,
But we always allowed somebody could jump on the grenade and sacrifice their life for the rest of the party.
yeah, for sure. Age had a good. We were playing Traveler the other night. He was in a fight with a pirate captain, and the pirate cat. I think he only had one hit point left. Anyway, his last action, the pirate captain, was to pull the pin on a grenade that was on
Mm.
his. He was going to take Age's character with him, and I was like, in my mind, I was like, oh, he's going to have to dive for coverage. You have to get out of here. And he was so quick on his feet. He was like, I turn him over. Yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome.
and yeah,
That sounds like age.
yeah,
um,
yeah. That was
but
brilliant.
did you? I think we talked about that before. I won't bring that up again. Do you ever have trouble getting into the heads of your villains or the monsters or the enemies that you've decided to run in that adventure? Any adventure?
Hmm. I don't know if I have trouble getting into them, um, but some are obviously more. Some don't necessarily turn out. Maybe some turn out better than others, I guess, or maybe they don't land quite as well as you had hoped, or they land better than you expected. It's interesting because sometimes you kind of alluded to this about NPCs, that sometimes it's you don't even know which NPC is going to be the one. Uh, yeah, that does happen, and it can happen with NPCs. It can happen with villains. Sometimes a minor villain becomes so memorable that they play a much larger role in the story, especially in campaigns. Um, or as luck would have it, the characters just by chance of the dice get defeated by a villain that you weren't thinking was going to be a major one, and that makes them a major
Hmm.
one. Um, yeah, I don't know. What about yourself? I like to put a lot of effort into villains, and
Hmm.
their kind of uh, psyche. I almost think of them as my characters to some extent. I'm playing them, right? So
Yeah, I try. I I would say this, it's harder for me now than it was when I was a
yeah,
teenager or a young
mm,
adult. The angst that I had at that age allowed me to maybe probably not truly get into the mind of a villain, but to at least play somebody villainously. And I was running Patriots of Ulek, which is a 2E adventure, but we were running it for 1E, and there just happenstance. One of the characters went into the room with a villain, and we made some secret rolls. And then when the rest of the party got there, the bad guy was standing there with a knife around the hero's, the PC's throat.
oh yeah,
And this was
yeah,
one of the party's favorite characters. Everybody loved him. And so he just said, throw down all your weapons or I'm going to kill him. And they did it. Look, without question, they're like, we don't want anything to happen to this character. They all threw down their weapons. So I had him kill him and jump out the window and escape. So it was a couple sessions later, they caught this guy, and the moment of them finally killing the villain was the glorious, like the cheers from
yeah,
the players was phenomenal. Like the look on their faces, I was like, I couldn't have invented this story myself. Like they made this
yeah.
happen. And
That's
maybe I
cool.
took what they did by sending one guy in alone, the kind of, because against a much superior foe, he wasn't going to beat him, and it just worked out really well. But I didn't plan it. I didn't sit there and think this guy's going to be this great villain. It just happened
Yeah,
to work that way. Like when they threw down their weapons, I remember thinking to myself, why would he let this guy live? He's an enemy. And so he killed him. And that just, they hated that villain so much that they hunted him down and killed him. It was a
yeah.
fun
I
thing.
mean, the reoccurring villain. It's really hard to do, because of course they have to escape or survive. But it's so powerful when there's that when the characters are so motivated. uh, to to defeat the villain or to get them. So yeah, that's really cool. I don't know if yeah, it's been a long time I think since I've had a random just like a minor villain become a major one because again we're doing one shots the opportunity like campaigns, yes, one shots the opportunity uh, for that to happen is a bit more limited, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah.
For sure. And one shots, I think the developing of the villain does require a certain amount of, yeah. I'm not sure that if I've done that lately. I try to put villains in my one shots, I guess, but I
I think
really
it's
like
just
to let the players drive the story.
yeah, I'm torn like villains, and I'm gonna use Star Wars as an example, right? So obviously, if you take Star Wars and you take Darth Vader, Darth Maul, Palpatine, um, there are great uh, like the villains are equally as important as the heroes, right? They're iconic, they're legendary, and now take the most recent Star Wars, um, Mandalorian and Grogu. Whether you like it or not, I mean, it's a fun movie, but the movie suffered in my mind because it didn't have a signature villain, right?
I
It didn't
think I think
have
that goes into the idea like the way professional wrestling used to work in the 80s and 90s. And maybe I
yeah,
guess debatably the 90s kind of changed everything with the Attitude Era, but prior to that the heroes were only as good as the villains that they had to fight. Like
yeah,
if you didn't have a
yeah,
a mountain to climb and surpass that, what were you really doing? Like if Hulk Hogan didn't didn't body slam Andre the Giant, who had turned heel,
yeah,
would that have been
yeah,
a momentous occasion? And Roddy Piper, like things like that. So I think that comes into the games and movies as well. If you don't, and then you can tell them what you can tell when a writer in a movie is just trying to make you hate somebody, and when you see it so obvious that you don't hate the villain, and you sometimes empathize with them, and that can be a
yeah,
mistake too.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so
I'll tell.
one of my recommendations is take an extra if you're writing something or prepping something, take a little extra time and try to put yourself in the headspace of that villain and ask yourself like I'll tell you there's one technique that I like to do. I don't know where I learned it from. Uh, but when I finished writing a story for an adventure, I step away and then I come back and I go and I start at the beginning again and I go, how can I make this better? Right?
Hmm.
And I just kind of go through and try to what one thing can I change that'll make this better? And I might do that 3 or 4 times. Um, and it's worth now, and I never really thought of it this way, but it's now worth going back and saying, how can I make this villain better? How can I make them more sinister or more sympathetic or whatever you want them to be? Um, what can I do in this adventure to kind of amp that up?
Well, the ethical dilemmas are interesting when they're not truly evil, but I think trying to make somebody who's a truly evil villain is difficult. And in my weekly campaign, and if they're listening, they'll may or may not pick this out. There is a villain. There are more villains, but there is a villain that I've been kind of hoping they would kind of connect with, and I've completely failed in this matter. So they were hunting. Two of their friends had gone missing, and they couldn't find them, and they started looking for them amongst doing other things. So the person who has them, as a warning, took one of them, snuck into the bedroom of one of the player characters, and impaled like this character with daggers from the character.
Oh,
Took the daggers from the character and stuck one of the guys that they were hunting on the wall with a "stop looking for the other one" kind of note, and they just stopped looking. That wasn't what I expected. I thought, oh, they would totally hate this person and go after them. That they just kind of let it go. Um, so
that's
yeah.
awesome. One thing I've never done, uh, but I think is also interesting because we think about villains as being like antagonists, but like in Lord of the Rings, the villain is the ring. Like have the villain be
Mm.
an object. I don't know if I've ever done that. I might have to. Yeah, that's an interesting.
Have you ever watched
Yeah.
the cartoon Final Space?
Yes. Yeah.
When you
That was
say
great.
villain, well, villain as an object isn't quite fit there. The object being something very powerful is
Yeah.
sways things. I don't want to
Yeah.
spoil it for anybody listening who's not seen it.
No.
Um, so we'll touch on stuff Adrian said. Adrian did ask about your Star Wars villain one shot.
No, I haven't. I haven't run that yet, so we'll have to pick a date to play it. I think it's so it is my so when I saw uh when I saw The Last Jedi and then Rise of Skywalker, um, I was one of the people that was, what the hell's going on here, right? Like obviously the Abrams Johnson Abrams thing. Obviously they didn't have a plan. Um,
Hmm.
so this adventure is my attempt to make sense of what was going on. So I approach it like a movie, um, and it's not just it's a Vader, Boba Fett, um, Mara Jade. I decided to introduce her. I don't know where is Mara Jade. Why has she never been introduced into the universe? Uh,
Hmm.
um,
I was thinking
and
of, like right then. I was thinking of Mara Jade the whole time, like you were
yeah,
talking.
and, yeah, and Admiral Thrawn, and it takes place during the Galactic Civil War era. But and I think I think if you're going into the adventure thinking that, oh, I'm going to get to play Darth Vader and slash things up with my lightsaber or whatever, there is that opportunity, but it's a role playing adventure. Like you're not
Mm.
it's like there's some moments in there. So I have Gem. I think it's on stream. I did run it on stream at one point in the past. Like there's some pretty heavy moments in there for some of these characters. Thrawn in particular, you have to be prepared to role play them, not just let's roll initiative. Yeah,
Yeah, I haven't read the last Thrawn book that came out. I read his trilogy and then like the Shadows of the Empire and stuff like that. Like that the Timothy Zahn books. I don't know if any of what
yeah,
you're
yeah.
doing has anything to do with them, but I was a huge fan of those Timothy Zahn books.
Yeah,
Like he did the three, and
same
then he
here.
did that other
Yeah,
two-part book, and then there was another one about Thrawn as a younger person, which I haven't read.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm a huge fan of them. I just stepped off camera, grabbed my
I figured.
Heir to
Heir
Heir
of
of
the
the
Yeah,
Empire,
I love that
and
book. Oh my gosh.
signed by first edition, signed by Timothy Zahn.
Wow, that's awesome.
There, yeah.
Yeah, mine's not signed, but I have that same book. But
Yeah,
that is awesome. Did you meet him or did you buy that?
I did, yeah.
Oh,
He
wow.
came to
That would have been
Hell
cool.
he came to HellCon. The thing is, people don't know authors, right? They don't know them
Mm,
to see them. Uh, and I'm at HellCon. He's sitting at a table by himself, and I'm like,
yeah,
"What?" Timothy Zahn is sitting right there. So I walked
yeah.
up, and it was just a great moment. I had a little conversation. I handed him. So most people were. He had a couple of people come up, but nobody. When I took this out and I handed it to him, he immediately grabbed it. He opened it up and he looked at the edition, Earth edition, and he just looked at me and he just said, "Nice." Signed it and handed it.
That's awesome. That's a great story. I like yeah.
Yeah.
It would have been nice to meet him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Adrian made a comment about the ammo mechanic from Recon. At any time during the firefight, the GM can call on an ammo check, and everyone rolls against int, which I assume is intelligence. And if they
Yeah.
fail, their weapon just went click. Otherwise, it's assumed they switched mags at some point during the battle.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that better than tracking ammo because I just think
Yeah,
tracking ammo doesn't. I don't know. It's interesting concept doesn't necessarily work in practice, but I like this kind of idea where the GM can go, okay, that was a pretty intense firefight, ammo check, right? And and you make some type of roll. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
and the
I
fact
like
that
it
it's not.
too.
Yeah,
And when we did the West Marches last year, we had that one of the dice that goes down every time you roll a 1 or 2, you get a lower die for stuff, and
oh,
that's
yeah. Yeah,
it's
yeah,
workable. I didn't hate it. The skull die is probably something I would go with after playing with you with ammo, but the reason in my part of the reason in the Faraway Land campaign that I track it is because they have ammo that's special and because they have weapons that only use
oh, okay,
special
yeah,
ammo
yeah,
and things like that. And if we don't track it, then it just made sense. Like if somebody makes a bunch of Mastercraft daggers and he's got normal daggers and the Mastercraft daggers never run out.
for sure,
But then
that makes
there's
sense, yeah, yeah,
the whole I like the idea that they gotta think about buying their ammo when they have a chance and they tend not to, so I'm letting them walk themselves into a situation where they've run out of things, and what I'm finding is they don't care and they make do with what they have and still don't go get ammo.
that's funny. Yeah, it's
What
interesting that, so treasure has, that's so ammo, this kinda leaps over into treasure. Uh,
mhm,
Gold is almost, I mean, other than magic items, we don't pay it. Like in my group, we wouldn't pay attention to treasure anymore. Like we're not counting it.
mhm,
We're not. I mean, it's just like, it's basically it's kind of a loose thing. How much coin do I have? Can I buy a meal? Yep. Can I buy a horse? Yeah, probably. You guys have been adventuring for a bit, and I don't care about the exactly how many gold pieces uh, do you have type thing. Because again, I'm thinking about it like Lord of the Rings. They didn't stop halfway going, all right, can we pull our gold to see if we can buy a
yeah.
10-foot pole? Um,
Yeah, I think our view of the Lord of the Rings is slightly different. That's something worth tackling in another episode. I'll not make a note of that. Whether the Lord of the Rings, because you made a comment about it being kind of like we were talking about gritty and epic, and where does Lord of the Rings fall for you?
Lord of the Rings is a weird is Lord of the Rings is called kind of multifaceted, right? Like
Mhm.
if you take your like I would say it's low fantasy from the character's point of view, right? So if you think about even Aragorn or Frodo or Boromir or Legolas, I mean, Legolas, so elves are a little bit in the mid, they have some special stuff. Then there's also these very high fantasy elements. It's a bit unique, but I think the difference is that it's when you run into a monster in Lord of the Rings, it's of note, right? It's not, oh, there's another owlbear, let's roll initiative and kill it. Like the monsters typically have names, um, and they're notable. Like it's not something light to fight a troll. Fighting a troll is something, you know, that
Mhm.
okay, there's that sense of danger, a bit of awe. So I don't know, what's your take on it?
I think it's a bigger discussion. I think my
Okay,
take
could
on
be,
it,
yeah.
if I was to say it in a few words, is that to me that is the epic high. Like that is the high
It
fantasy.
is.
That is
Oh,
the.
for sure. Yeah, so I kind of agree. So, and maybe it's the terminology. So high
Mhm.
fantasy in my mind, and I might be wrong, high fantasy in my mind is the characters encounter a dragon, all the characters spread wings, summon their elemental avatars, and all attack, right? Like
Yeah.
it's so that to me is high fantasy. Uh
Mhm.
and Lord of the Rings has is not that, right?
Yeah, I think that maybe next session we'll bring that up near the beginning and we'll talk about our because what we need to reset definitions, and I think that's where we'll find
That's
common
right.
ground.
Yeah, and I don't know
Uh,
what that, yeah, we'll have to figure out what are those different types of fantasy called, I guess
that's right.
is the
That's good,
question. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know the answer to it.
but I think we can talk it out.
Yeah.
That's good for next session. I what did I want to say? I don't know if I have anything else. We're probably near our end of time here. Maybe it's a good
Uh yep, we probably
d-
are.
depends how long I was out in the middle. Thanks, Adrian, for the chat.
Yeah, I think less than 10 minutes you wrote. Yeah.
Let's see. I think I've lost any train of thought to move on. So I think we're at a natural ending point here. Thanks for joining Adrian in the chat, in the text chat, Age of Adventure, and I'm Kersus, aka Dwight, and this was our 6th episode. We'll have another one next week, same time if you want to listen in. And I'm also with
Phzoul. Thanks a lot, Dwight.
That was the show.